Hello, my name is Westy. Welcome back to another year of Glendon Performing Arts. I will remind you that just like last year, I am Glendon Performing Arts Director of Theater. I use they, them pronouns. And today I'm going to be presenting a video to you on mindfulness and how it relates to acting. In fact, how mindfulness can improve your acting. So, what is mindfulness exactly? What is this idea? It's definitely a buzzword in the cultural zeitgeist right now and all of that. But what does it mean? Well, the idea of mindfulness is the idea of becoming aware of the moment, the present that we live in, and existing solely within that moment. The idea of being completely aware of what is happening around us, of our senses, of our emotions, of our thoughts, and how those feel and how those affect us, as well as being able to acknowledge those feelings and thoughts and let them go. The idea of mindfulness really serves as kind of a space of no judgment for yourself. This non-judgmental idea that exists without rumination or intellectualization or anything that makes you think too much. It's about almost removing yourself from your thoughts and instead achieving a more objective observation of your physical, emotional, and sensational states. Serving as a witness to yourself for the purpose of observation and inquiry. The more you inform yourself about yourself and your surrounding world, the better you can connect with it. And the healthier, in theory, you can live your life. A lot of mindfulness relies on the idea of meditation. And meditation itself is simply the practice of paying attention. When we meditate, we pay attention, deep, thoughtful, purposeful attention to the way we breathe, to the emotions we're feeling, to the thoughts we're having, to the way we connect to the world around us. We observe our thoughts and feelings as they rise and fade away naturally without specifically holding on to any of these thoughts or feelings. Rather, feeling them, observing them, and letting them pass. Acting in and of itself is a form of mindfulness. Acting, in a large part, requires the actor to exist consciously. When we're acting, what we're doing is being. We're not just standing in the right place and making the right faces to replicate emotions. We're reliving those emotions. We're reliving the moments, and as we reenact them in the stage, we be the character. We be in that moment. We have to be able to be, as actors, present to the authors of those in the scene with us. We have to have awareness and engagement and immersion in the scene that we're acting in, the moment that we're portraying on stage. There's a sense of heightened awareness. So that in a way, being in a play or in a scene, the acting itself becomes a form of meditation. A large part of being able to engage with an audience comes from the audience's interest in watching you be engaged in the action. A gentle, unforced focus is compelling for an audience to watch. The audience is naturally drawn in by the silent awareness of an actor who is purposefully in a state of heightened awareness, purposefully in a state of paying attention and actively listening. When we act, we drop constrictions on ourselves, especially constrictions on this idea of who we have to be in our life, constrictions on our identity and on ourselves. And that's also a big part of mindfulness. In fact, the Stanislavski system, created by Stanislavski, If you've watched any of the older videos with me on our channel, you've probably heard me mention him at least once. Well, Stanislavski created this system that is also known as the art of experiencing. To him, acting was an act of self-awareness and understanding. One must be aware of themselves, and one must understand themselves and the world around them in order to be creative. In fact, Stanislavski even goes as far to say that talent is merely a prolonged period of attention. When we act, what we're doing is paying attention. What we're doing is being mindful, whether or not we realize it. And so, actively practicing mindfulness in our life can help a lot with acting. First and foremost, one of the biggest things that helps with acting is stop judging yourself. When you're on stage, don't be thinking of yourself. You've got to let go of that little invisible director sitting on your shoulder. You've got to let go of your inner critic who's telling you the entire time how you're doing. Judging yourself, judging if you're portraying an emotion well, if you're doing the action right, if you're standing in the right spot, if. Because what we have to do is focus on the doing and the experiencing rather than the result. Because if we can focus on the doing and the experiencing, the result will be that much better. And practicing mindfulness in our day-to-day life is a really big way of learning how to focus on this doing and experiencing rather than thinking too much about the results. Mindfulness allows us to take care of ourselves in a way that allows us to not need to be concerned about ourselves. Here's an exercise that I want you to do with me. Contemplate who you are. I want you to think, where were you born? Who's your family? What's your education? Where did you grow up? What do you want to do in the future? Think about all these things that have happened in your past. Now think about where you are right now. Think about how you feel about your current life. What are its ups and downs? What are your feelings about what's going on now? What are your feelings about what's going to happen? Now that you've considered all of these things, I want you to ask yourself and really consider the answer here. Are you those things? Or are you more? Are you defined by what has happened and what will happen? Or are you something else? Something more than that? The things that give us meaning are the things we pay attention to. When you're defining yourself, we have a tendency to look too much to our past, to our futures, to our thoughts, instead of realizing that we are inherently ourselves. We are right here, right now, in this moment, not caught between the past or the future, not defined by thought or emotion or judgment by ourselves or others. We simply are. And through acts like this of thinking about how we define ourselves, we can realize through mindfulness that our self isn't in need of constant maintenance, isn't in need of constant definition. Really, our self just is. And it's no big deal. We are who we are. In this moment, in the next, from moment to moment, we're 1,000 different selves. And it doesn't really matter because you still are, no matter what. And when you understand something like this, when you really ingrain that thought into you, it becomes all that much easier to take on roles when you're acting, because if you have an integral understanding of yourself, it allows you to have an understanding of other people, including fictional people who we need to portray. Also, understanding yourself allows you to better participate in acting as an act of collaboration. Mindfulness, bringing less focus on yourself, allows an openness to others. The more we practice mindfulness, the more capable we are of having awareness, of truly listening to those around us, accepting and enacting their ideas. Acting relies on our ability to react to others and the situations that we're in. Good acting establishes a true, genuine depth of connection between the actors and between their characters. And when we're able to use mindfulness to provide a focus that's not just on ourselves, to provide an understanding of ourselves as something fluid and constant at the same time, we're able to more easily be open to these experiences of genuine connection and be open and able to react to situations as they arise on stage or in our lives. There's also the idea in mindfulness of being aware of how our emotions, thoughts, actions look and feel, both internally and in relation to the space around us. The more we pay attention to these things, the more we internalize them. The more we internalize them, the easier it is to replicate them when we need to on stage. And rather than just replicate them, truly feel them again in that moment. The same can also be said about movement. Mindfulness in our movement is key to control. There's a difference between what we often think our body is doing and what we are in reality doing with our bodies. Mindfulness is an act of becoming more aware of that and becoming more in control of that, because the more we are aware, the better we are able to control these things. Here's another little exercise for you to try. Move your hand from here to over here. Turn it around. Wiggle your fingers. What do you notice when you move your hand? Is the movement smooth or jolted and jerky? If you recognize the movement as smooth, then you're already enacting a form of mindfulness, an awareness of all of the points your hand passes between when it moves from point A to point B. Now, recontextualize that movement. We have point A to point B, but what if instead of B, it's Z? And so from moving from A over here to Z over here, we pass through every single letter of the alphabet. That means that we're paying attention then and acknowledging every single incremental small action that comes together to form the bigger total, focusing on the doing rather than the result. Another exercise you can try for yourself sometime that really helps with acting in terms of mindfulness is to really look at and pay attention to an object. Using this object, become aware of how it feels, using all of your senses. And then later on, you can use those senses to replicate it again. So if you pick up something like your toothbrush, you do the action and you pay full attention to it, paying conscious, purposeful attention to how it feels in your hand, the weight of it, how it sounds, how it tastes, how it looks, how your body moves in relation to itself and to the room around you, how the object moves in relation to your body. Pay attention. And then, when you put down the object, do it again without the object. Imagine that toothbrush is in your hand. Feel the weight of it. Hear the sound of it. See what it looks like. Taste what it tastes like. Recall all of the details for all of the senses. And then you can do the action again. And you'll notice how much more realistic it is and how it feels doing the action rather than focusing on the result of looking like you're doing the action. When we brush our teeth on stage and we don't actually have a toothbrush in hand, it's very easy to end up thinking, I need to look like I'm brushing my teeth, rather than actually doing the action and being aware of all of those sensations that come with it. Once you get a sense of how objects feel in reality in terms of their relation to all of our senses, then you can also expand past the object. You can feel your awareness of this object, and then you can imagine and feel the possibilities. Who's to say that the toothbrush just has to be a toothbrush? Once you've done the basics of seeing how the object feels and exists in reality in that moment, you can allow yourself to see it in new and unusual ways. And that leads to genuine creativity when it comes to things like acting. Actors who are able to see everyday items, everyday feelings, thoughts, emotions in new and different ways are able to do a lot more on stage. Another reason why mindfulness is so important in the process of acting is because acting requires a lot of energy, and it's very easy to accidentally drain yourself or even harm yourself without realizing it, especially if you're acting in a potentially traumatic scene, one with a lot of heavy emotions. Without necessarily realizing it, those emotions that we're portraying on stage can actually get to us. And practicing mindfulness regularly in our lives helps to recognize when that's happening and helps to prevent it from happening again, because you are able to use mindfulness as a sort of protection and separation of yourself and the thoughts, feelings, or emotions that you're acting, or even the thoughts and emotions that you're feeling in reality. You're able to feel them, acknowledge them, and let them pass. A mindful awareness is also very important when doing something like stage fighting or stage combat. When we're having these physical confrontations on stage, when we're depicting these things, we need to be fully aware of ourselves. And if we regularly practice the sorts of activities of being aware not just of our hand when it's at point A, but all of the little steps in between, that really helps when it then translates to doing something bigger on stage, because you're less likely to, in those in-between movements, to lose control of yourself, to lose awareness of what your body is doing versus what you're trying to do with it. Now, really, the only way to truly understand mindfulness is to practice it. And so together, for the last little bit of this video, we're going to do some mindfulness exercises together. The first one is practicing a sensory awareness of our surroundings, engaging all of our senses in the moment, so that we can feel how our emotions affect us, affect every sense: touch, sight, sound, taste, smell, and how the conditions of our surroundings affect ourselves. For an actor, there are two sorts of categories of mindfulness that are very important to exercise. The first one is our voice, being mindful of our voice. So I want you to just breathe with me. In and out. Deep, slow breaths. Be aware of your breathing. Not just how long it's taking you to do it, or not just how it feels inside, but also how you're breathing. Is your breath going in to the top of your chest? Or is it going all the way down into your diaphragm? As we breathe, as we feel that movement inside of us, does it make you aware of any tension in your jaw, your neck, your shoulders, the rest of your body? Do you feel that tension? Can you try to relax it? Feel how that changes your breathing when you're relaxed, when you make sure to sit up straight with good posture, when you feel where your breath comes from. It's coming from up in your chest. Can you move it down into your diaphragm, just below your ribs? When we speak, when we use our voice, how does that feel? Where do you feel your voice coming from? Does it come from down in your chest? Does it come from up in your head? When you're focusing on the sound of your voice, are you thinking about how it sounds? Try instead to think about how it feels. Think about how your voice is being produced. Think of how we make the sounds inside of us. You put your hand at the base of your throat and make a sound. You feel it vibrate. When we focus on the production of our voice, when we focus on the experience, on the doing, instead of the result, we have more control. We're aware of where our voice is coming from. We can move it. Now, as you continue breathing, the other important thing for an actor to be aware of is their body. As actors, our bodies and our voices are our tools. So when we shift our awareness into our body, we need to look at, examine, and feel how we use our bodies. What's easy for our bodies? What's difficult? And of course, it's important to find the point where difficult becomes harmful. As you sit here taking deep breaths, feel it in your body. Feel the muscles that move. Become aware of your joints. You can move your wrists, move your arms, move your ankles, wiggle your fingers or toes. Become aware of the joints and how they feel when they're still or when they're in motion. Become aware of your muscles, how your muscles interact with your joints, how they interact with each other. Become aware of the tension that you hold in your body. When you're sitting up straight, can you feel your spine as something straight, stacked, each vertebrae one on top of the other? Or can you feel that you maybe lean slightly to the side, maybe lean slightly forward? Can you bring it so that your spine is in that straight alignment? Notice too how much effort it takes to sit straight, to stand, to be in whatever position you're in. And become aware as well of how we use our head, neck, and spine. When you're holding your head up, how does it feel? How does it feel in the muscles of your neck? How does it feel in the alignment of your spine? And of course, as we're using our body, as we're becoming aware of it, don't just think internally. I want you to turn your mind outwards. How does your body exist in relation to the space around it? How does it exist in relation to other people? As you practice mindfulness more and more often in your daily life, you become more aware of how you exist in relation to the world around you. And as an actor, being aware of this in body, in movement, in voice, in all of our senses, is vitally important to being able to safely and accurately replicate things on a stage. Now, together, we're going to do one of my favorite mindfulness exercises. And I'm sure you've probably done a very similar exercise before, but perhaps you haven't heard of it in terms of mindfulness. It is one of the most classic mindfulness exercises, whether or not you realized it when you've done it before. I like to call it taking a trip. And I'll lead you through it now. But more or less, the idea is to imagine yourself in a new place where you engage all of the senses. You feel things tactically, the feeling of touch. You shut your eyes so that you can see it. You feel yourself in relation physically and mentally. You can smell it, you can hear it, you can even taste it. And then when you can imagine something happening there, you can react to it, still engaging all of your senses. So I'm going to lead you through it now. First, I want you to close your eyes. I want you to focus on your breathing. Once again, nice and slow, in and out. Now, as you continue focusing on your breathing, I want you to imagine that you're outside. It's winter. It's snowing. See yourself out there in the snow. What does it look like? What are you wearing? Envision the clothes you would be wearing. You can visualize them. I also want you to feel them. Feel the clothes you'd be wearing as you stand outside in the snow. Are they heavy? Is there any spot on your body where they might be a little bit uncomfortable? Or maybe you find the bulk of it comforting. Now I want you to visualize your surroundings. The landscape. Are there trees? Streets? Houses? I want you to see it. And I want you to hear it. What does it sound like? Can you hear the wind in the leaves? Or the cars on the street? Where are you in relation to this landscape? Where are your feet in relation to the ground, the snow? Are your feet standing on top of soft, white, fluffy snow? Or maybe your feet are in the wet slush. How do you feel physically? Are you warm enough? Maybe the snow's making you cold. Or maybe you have a cup of hot chocolate in your hands, and that's warming you up, stopping you from shivering. What do you smell? Can you smell the fresh, clean scent of snow? Or maybe if you were seeing streets, you smell the gasoline from the cars passing by. Or maybe if you have hot chocolate in your hand, you're smelling that. Focus on all of your senses, how you exist in relation to this snowy world. Now imagine as a snowflake falls on the tip of your nose. You can even stick your tongue out and taste the snow. Feel how every part of it feels inside of you. Feel what emotions and thoughts it brings. And remember that all of this exists in relation to those surroundings. Now, as we come out of it, I want you to focus instead of on this imaginary snowy world, on how you feel in reality at this moment. Are you sitting down? Are you standing up? Are you in your living room, your bedroom? What does that smell like, feel like, sound like? Is your house too warm? Is your family making noise outside? Can you smell barbecue drifting in on the breeze from your window? Bring all of your senses into what you feel in reality in this moment. You can open your eyes again and choose something to look at. And think truly, deeply, about what that looks like. Observe it. Maybe it's fluttering slightly in the wind from your fan. Maybe it's perfectly still and casting a long, dark shadow. Become aware again of your body, how it feels in relation to itself. Where are your hands in relation to your shoulders, your chest? And become aware as well of any emotions you're feeling in this moment. Any thoughts that are entering your mind. Feel them, acknowledge them, and let them pass on by. This is a state of mindfulness, an act of meditation, of paying purposeful attention. And when we do acts of mindfulness like this, it can help us in our acting. It can help us to be non-judgmental of ourselves. It can help us act in collaboration to others. It can help us replicate feelings, emotions, actions on stage. When we practice mindfulness, when we practice being aware of the moment, of our surroundings, of all of our senses, then we can enact these things on stage. Because in the end, acting is in and of itself, at its heart, the idea of existing consciously. When we act, what we're doing is being. And in order to do that, that means we need to focus on the doing and the experiencing rather than on the results. The same ideas that are brought up and focused on by mindfulness. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this was a nice, relaxing session for you at the start of yet another online year, or mostly online. I hope that the ideas I brought up today can help you in your acting journey now and in the future. If you look down at the description below, I will try to paste a few links to some of the articles that I read in relation to making this video today. Some of them have some very interesting things to bring up that I didn't have time to mention in this video. Thanks again. I'm Westy, Director of Theater with Glendon Performing Arts. Bye now.